And we're live with another episode of BS Busters, and today we're talking about, stuff. No, I'm joking. No, we're talking about a lot of really cool stuff, believe it or not. And let me get to, sorry, I'm a little unprepared. Okay, so today's BS Busters is we're talking about what criterion constitutes a console or handheld failure, a console or handheld failure, and if that applies to the Wii U. We will also discuss why Sega left the first-party market and what were the real trigger points for it. But before we get into the main topics, we got some news that came out this week.
There's a couple of news that we looked past from last week.
Yes. So we'll get to that first, and let's get to it.
If I could bring up one.
Okay.
Anthem is about to become a Titanic, if I got it right. Especially if you saw their broadcast this week.
What happened?
They're canceling a lot of their stuff that they said that they're going to release next month or later.
Well, I mean, I've said this before, that when you have stuff like that, it's very like games like that are very hit or miss, right? Like, and they made a game that was basically very how can I put this nicely? How can I, like, it's a saturated market. You know what I mean? Like, games like that are a saturated market, and BioWare, like, games as a service and all that bullshit, and like, no one in their right mind wants that. Like, you know, within basic, you know, modicums of decorum and all that stuff. Like, I don't think people were like, yeah, man, you know that company that's known for making hardcore, semi-hardcore Western RPGs. Yeah, they're gonna make a open world looter shooter. What? With kind of a shitty story. What? Like, I don't think people wanted that, and I think it was like a passing convenience, and people were like, oh, this is nice, and then people stopped playing it, and now Anthem is, you know, I mean, I don't know why people are surprised, because, like, that's not what BioWare is good for. You know, like, different studios are good at different things. Like, Atlas is good for making anime-esque hardcore JRPGs, right? Like, that's what Atlas is really known for. And occasionally they publish other stuff, but that's really their wheelhouse. You want a hardcore JRPG that's got an anime aesthetic that's like, don't let the cute visuals fool you. This shit will kick you in the nuts hard. Okay, then Atlas is your friend. Same thing with the people who make the Disgaea series, right? All those games, Nippon Ichi Software, they're known for making cutesy games that are a little bit moe, but, like, it's like, don't let the aesthetic fool you, because these games get really hard, okay, and really have really deep gameplay systems. Well, you know, with all that being said, like, why, you know,
yeah,
why do, you know, like why would you take a studio that's known for doing that
and put them into something like Anthem, especially when it's been in crunch time for almost all of its development, and is based off of 7 minutes of flashy power fantasies.
Well, and not only that, but let's keep it real, okay? We've all been to school, okay? We've all been to high school, junior high school. Some of us been to college, graduated, whatever. We all know that we've all at some point probably we've either done this or we've either done this or we've seen someone do this. How many times has someone done a project at the last minute, crunch time project, right?
On the last week.
Okay, and how many times, like, if you go back and look at that project, yeah, you may have gotten a C or a D, or if you're lucky, a B, but was it really your best work?
Surprisingly, yes.
Really? Because I've discovered
least
that that's not the case.
At least if I start on a Sunday.
For me, I've never any project that's done rushed and under crunch time, typically speaking, is not good. At the time you think it's good. You're like, man, look what I was able to accomplish.
The thing
but then
is,
you go back and you look at it and you're like, this is shit.
The thing is that I tried to do it on the last week, since if anything, that's also when I have a lot of things that I have to focus with. And if anything, it has me remember that I have a big goal in mind, as well as another goal.
Well, for me, I've never seen that. That's never been an effective thing for me. My own personal thing.
Start at the beginning of the week. If I do it near the middle of the week, then I could say that you're right.
Okay, you're the exception. By and large, when things are done at the last minute, crunch time, you're gonna miss shit because you're rushing to get shit done. Now, this is something as simple as a project or a paper or something like that. Imagine the amount of work that has to go into making a game. Okay, because this isn't something where I just do my bit. As long as I do my bit, everything will be fine. This is a collaborative effort where multiple people are rushing to get shit done and probably fucking up. So, so you have a cascade effect of things getting fucked up coming out. So, I mean, in total, what I'm saying is that, frankly speaking, I'm not really surprised that Anthem is what it is. Anthem is what it is. I'm not really like, oh my god, I can't believe it's not as good as it should be. No, really? Oh, I can't believe it.
I'm not surprised. But I'm based on how badly it's falling, because I expected it to crash, but still, it went under expectations.
Not really surprised.
As in, I expected it to fail, but fail this hard? Ugh.
Like I said, not really surprised.
Moving on from our usual Apex Anthem news, we've got some new information on Persona 5 Royale today.
Okay.
Right before the concert tomorrow in Japan.
Okay. We got news that we're going to get news tomorrow, or we just got new information?
We just got a new trailer for Persona 5 Royale.
All right. So basically what we're looking at is another up-resed port of a game that was on the last gen system. Actually, it was also on the PS3. So so supports basically is what you're saying.
It's a typical it's the typical re-release of a Persona game, just like how we got an updated re-release of Persona 3 for the PSP, an updated re-release of Persona 4 for the PS2.
And they've done this well, actually, no, it was for the Vita, which is
funny enough. It's going to be our topic later.
Yeah, I mean, basically, but Atlas has been doing this with their Persona games and their Shin Megami Tensei games for years, doing updated ports after the fact, like the ultimate edition of that game. Like even the original Persona on the SNES, like you had Shin Megami Tensei, Shin Megami Tensei 2, and then you had like an alternate version that came out after 2 that was like a better version with little extra bennies and stuff in it. I mean they do this a lot. Okay, is what I'm saying. Like it's kind of weird.
And for what we got from the new trailer is that Morgana is going to have a human form like Teddy in the last game.
I mean, that's cool, but I think Teddy was a more interesting character.
And we're getting 2 new characters: a 15-year-old schoolgirl named Tatsumi, as well as a male doctor. whose name I forgot. And of course, one of the Phantom Thieves is getting more character development in one of the side quests.
I mean, they do this a lot. If I didn't already have this game for the PS3, I'd be really like, oh man, this is awesome. But I already have this game, and typically speaking, like there's very few Persona Shin Megami Tensei / Persona titles where the plus, the secondary edition adds enough new content where it makes it worth buying it again. Sometimes it's worse, like how they went in how Persona 4 Gold is objectively like not quite as good as the original, because they changed voice actors for some of the characters, and the new voice actors sound shitty.
and there's been some rumors about the vanilla version of Persona 5 coming to Switch and not the enhanced port.
I mean, it could happen. Atlas hasn't been as having their head up their ass about putting their games on Nintendo systems. Like we've gotten Shin Megami Tensei games on the 3DS and a Persona-esque game on the Wii U, so not really surprised. I know it was called something else, but I'll always call it Persona Emblem because that's what it was. But anyway, any other news before we get into the main topics?
Oh yes, the canceled Conker's Bad Fur Day sequel called Conker's Other Bad Day.
Yeah, that would have been awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Apparently the plot of it involves Barry coming back from the dead and out to kill Conker. And the plot twist was that there's actually two Barrys, and one of them is a clone.
Probably cloned by the evil doctor who basically implanted that alien in the king's chest. Because Conker's Bad Fur Day is one of those games that you play it and you're like, oh, this is just really cool. But there's actually a surprisingly deep backstory to it. It's like there's actually a lot of shit going on that you just kind of like see the surface of. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, and we'll never get to see that because Rare is shit these days. And will continue to be nothing but shit these days. As long as Microsoft owns them, they'll be shit. So it's sad because, Rare used to be good.
Unless they hire some really good people for Rare to get them back in the game.
Yeah, it would take like at this point, I don't even trust Rare. Like even if Microsoft sold them off or gave them their independence, I wouldn't trust Rare to make anything because the people who really made Rare are gone. So in the trash that's left is just that's that. They weren't good enough to go by themselves, go do something else. And I know some people are going to get angry when they hear that. How can you say that?
Simple. Nintendo had to sell them off since they were losing quality. And look what Microsoft got, the leftovers.
How can you say that they're trash? I'll tell you how I can say they're trash. Because the games that Rare has come out with since they've been owned by Microsoft have been consistently shitty in quality, by and large. I mean, there are exceptions, like
the big exception would be Viva Pinata series.
Yeah, the Viva Pinata 2, those are really good games. But those games don't even feel like Xbox Dude Bro games. They feel, I mean, I hate to say this, they feel like Nintendo titles. Like, could you imagine how awesome a Viva Pinata would have been on the Wii with motion control? So you waggle,
pop those pinatas.
You waggle you waggle the Wiimote, and you're fucking beating the shit out of a pinata to get candy that you can use to buy better shit to entice higher quality pinata animals to come to your pinata garden. So yeah, I mean, those don't even feel like Nintendo, they don't feel like Xbox games. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got
Nuts and bolts.
Nuts and Bolts. Well, before Nuts and Bolts, you had Perfect Dark Zero, which was trash. You had Cameo, Elements of Power, also trash. You had Conker's Bad Fur Day redo, which here's the shocking thing, okay?
They are more censored than Nintendo's version.
Xbox was the dude bro. Like, Xbox was the dude bro system, right? They were like, we do whatever we want to. We have no limits on publishers, on developers. And yet they released Conker's Bad Fur Day, a re-release, and it literally is censored more than the N64 version. Which the N64 version has some censorship, but the way they censor it, it's like, yeah, it's censored, but you knew exactly what that motherfucker said. You know, it's like when you try to get into the rock and roll club for the rock guys, where they play the awesome club song "Rock Solid," and like before you figure out, you got to pee on them to make them roll into a ball so it'll get out the way. Yeah, Conker's Bad Fur Day is a very vulgar game, but like you get close to him and the guy's like, "Fuck you," except they censored the "you," but you totally know what he says. He's like, "Fuck you," you know. And then there's some shit that they don't even censor. Like, what's the password? It's like Fedatio. It's like, it's fellatio? It's like, no. Fedatio. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a very, like some things are censored, some things aren't censored. Like the cows who drink the prune juice and get the shits. Like they just say in old lady cow voice, "Oh no, I've got the shits." You know, it's
hard to keep a straight face when hearing some of the stuff.
And yet, in the Xbox version, it's all censored. Even the Great Mighty Pooh is censored. I mean,
what?
The Soprano, which that's the name of the song. It's
I was
Soprano.
trying to
like.
I was surprised that you said that. The Great Mighty Pooh, censored.
The Soprano, which Rare actually went and got a guy who actually sang in the London opera, like an opera soprano, to sing that song. So that's why it's called the Soprano. And literally, like, that song is just very, you know.
I'm trying to not think about it too much, but
if you hear that song like 2 or 3 times, it gets stuck in your head and you start humming it, you know. But anyway, like they sing Soprano, and that song is all about a Great Mighty Pooh singing about how
he's going to take a poo on you.
Yeah, how he's going to take a poo on you, how he keeps his lovely grin, and what he's going to do to Conker when he gets his hands on him. He's like, "Yes, I'm going to take your head with all your bab and stick your head and ram it up my butt." What? Your butt? Yeah, my butt. Ah, your butt. Ah. But anyway, my point is this: the one thing you shouldn't censor, because that whole song is all a bunch of shit jokes. It's all a bunch of shit jokes. And that's censored. And so, like, basically Rare, and then, like, Microsoft realized, oh, shit, Rare is a bust. Well, we'll have them make Wii ripoffs. Wii Avatar ripoffs. They call them avatars, Xbox avatars. Yeah,
sorry?
It was clearly a ripoff of Wii, except Xbox didn't have the creativity or talent to make a good ripoff of the Wii.
And created Kinect games.
Yeah, and shitty Kinect games. Once again, ripoffs of the Wii. Except shitty. Because, I mean, like, here's the thing, okay? There are iconic Wii games, like Wii Sports Resort. You know, there are iconic motion control games for the Wii that had motion control. Like, really, I'm going to keep it real. Twilight Princess for the Wii is, like, the best version of that game because of the motion control. Especially for stuff like fishing. Fishing in Twilight Princess, oh my god, it's so fucking awesome with the motion control. But anyway, but then I mean, you know, can anyone name a Kinect game where they were like, yeah, man, I love this shit. It's so iconic. Like, is there an iconic Xbox Kinect game? Okay. And Star Wars Connect doesn't count because everyone knows that's a piece of shit. Hey man, look, I'm dancing. I'm dancing in the cantina as Han Solo. I can see Han Solo doing a lot of things. Dancing in Mos Eisley Cantina to badly rejiggered club music.
Hey, I like the Han Solo song.
Is not one of them. Who shot Guido? I did. No. Fuck this. Okay, or that shitty Star Wars game where they had lightsaber duels, but because the Kinect was so shitty, the lightsaber duel still was lame as fuck. Like that's the type of bullshit I'm talking about. It's just stupid. But anyway, yeah. Like Rare went to shit, and Microsoft let them go to shit and never bothered to actually uplift that studio. Which is ironic because there was one studio that they did own that they ran into the ground, Lionhead. People might not like the Fable series, but with each iteration, until Microsoft forced them to make those shitty Kinect games that no one wanted, each iteration of the series sold more. Like the first Fable sold 1 million, the second Fable sold 1.5, so you had a growth of 50% to the install base. And the third Fable sold like over 2 million. So basically with each installment, you had like a certain percentage. Like I think the third installment was a 33+% growth in install base. So that's a franchise that's growing, right? It's an RPG franchise, so RPGs are very niche. So you're not going to expect 10 million copies sold. That's just,
Yeah, but if anything, they should have hours of gameplay to work with.
Yeah, Fable had that. If you wanted to do all the fucking side quests and all the other shit, you're looking at like hundreds of hours of gameplay. And they managed to fuck that shit up because it's, they were like, oh yeah, those RPGs that you make that people love? Nah, fuck that. You know what we want? Connect games.
And thank you for reminding me of the worst one that I've heard of so far.
Yeah, because when I think of once again, RPG games coming out that are shit.
Oh God! If you think RPGs are beep with the Kinect, try a racing game.
I'm just saying, I'm tired of the bull. I'm tired of. So basically, yeah, Rare went to shit. The only way I would trust Rare right now, well, I don't trust Rare. Basically, I would rather see the people behind Ukulele make a spiritual successor to Conker's Bad Fur Day than watch Rare make a Conker's Bad Fur Day, because they'd only fuck it up, because that's all they've been doing since Microsoft bought them, is just take things that you love and fuck them up. Like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Hey, you guys want a 3D open world Banjo-Kazooie? Yeah, with vehicles? That'd be cool if you did the right connection. No, go ahead.
Speaking of spiritual successors, did you guys already talk about Retro Studios' mysterious project from the previous podcast?
No, we didn't. But we can segue into that. People say that Retro Studios is the new Rare. I don't like using that terminology, because like Retro Studios is good, but the Rare during their golden age had more really great iconic games under their belt than Retro. Right. You know what I mean? That they made themselves. Like nothing that Retro has made has actually, given real competition to Nintendo. Where Rare, when they were at their golden age, were making games that could rival what Nintendo was making.
They gave people a real comparison of thinking that Rare is first party while Nintendo's second party. If a game company could do that.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but they made games that were comparable to, and in some ways better than what Nintendo was coming out with. Like Donkey Kong Country is, to me, it's a better platformer than, say, it's on par with Super Mario World. Donkey Kong Country 2 is much better in my opinion than Yoshi's Island. As a platformer, it's better. Just game design wise. Like I just, and Rare was able to do that. And I mean, like multiple games, like they made Killer Instinct, which is an iconic brand, was an iconic brand. They did
Revived brand.
They did Diddy Kong Country.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing, which to me, I mean, is subjective, but to me, Diddy Kong Racing gave you more bang for your buck than Mario Kart, because Mario Kart, all it has was the battle mode and standard races. Diddy Kong Racing had that, but it also had an open world action adventure thing going on. So, I mean, you had a lot of bang for your buck. Plus, once you beat the game, you got the mirror tracks, which was also really cool. Although you also had mirror tracks in Mario Kart.
I was going to say that you can please tell me that you at least had more luck in that mode than I did.
I have a maxed out save for Diddy Kong Racing. I have 100%ed both the Golden Balloon Quest and the Silver Balloon Quest, which is the mirror. So
same here.
Listen. There's a reason I don't give a fuck about Mario Kart 64, and that's because I have Diddy Kong Racing, which to me just had more content.
I said the reason why I say that is because the reason why I feared Diddy Kong Racing to begin with, and actually had Hades, and to the point of saying, hey, hell no with it, the Silver Coin Challenge.
Yeah, like the Silver Coin Challenge was never that hard for me, because at the end of the day, you don't have to finish the race. You just have to get the coins, and then you can exit the race. Like you automatically, as long as you get the coins, you're good.
That doesn't sound like the Diddy Kong I had.
Then there's the second quest where they switch around the silver coins from their original placements.
Yeah, but that's still not like, oh my god, this is impossible. Like, okay, that's cool.
To me, it was annoyance to rage quit. As in, I had to stop myself before I tried again for it.
Like I said, I never had that problem with the game, but not every. See, here's the thing. That's the wonderful thing about Diddy Kong Racing, is that about video games, that you're all basically going to figure out what works for you. Like there's some racers that people have that might suck for them. Like I've used all the classes of racers. I used the small, nippy, high acceleration characters, the middle of the road balance characters, the heavy characters. Like, surprisingly, the best character for me, just speeding around, and also Diddy Kong Racing had no fucking rubber banding. So basically, if you were racing really well, you'd start lapping the shittiest racers. It was awesome. It's like, man, fuck you. You're only on the second lap.
Let's see. Continuing what I was going to say, there was an image that popped up on Twitter showing Retro Studios' goodbye poster to Reggie Fils-Aimé.
And there was a character in the picture, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was a picture of Reggie as well as all of the characters from the games that Retro has worked on, including one that was blocked by a bronze Mario statue, and nobody knows what it is. It can't be a Federation Force officer, because that was made by Next Level Games, not Retro Studios. And so
they could be working on it.
And that's when when people found out about a rumor about Retro Studios' mysterious project titled Peekaboo, which is described to be a collectathon involving a robot with a ghost girl partner, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie.
And
that's where I got the conclusion that Retro Studios is trying to be the next Rareware.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see them being the next Rareware, is what I'm saying.
I mean, you've got the Metroid Prime games being an equivalent to the GoldenEye and Perfect Dark games.
Yeah, but I just don't. Like I said, they have to get more games under their belt that are rivaling. Like I said, Rare during the SNES generation had like 4 games. I will admit, Donkey Kong Country 3 not quite as good as the first 2 games, but still pretty good in its own right. But then you have Killer Instinct, so that's 3 top-level games that were rivaling what Nintendo was doing. Then during the N64 era, you had a whole bunch of games that were going up against what Nintendo was doing, and were kicking their ass. I'm sorry, no people are gonna get angry. Like I love Mario 64, but what Rare was able to do with Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, like makes Mario 64 look basic as fuck. Okay. And then the GoldenEye, and then GoldenEye set a lot of standards for first-person shooters on home consoles. There's just it's like in retro. While I love them, haven't done that. Like okay, they did Metroid Prime. Like Metroid Prime, the first Metroid Prime is basically Super Metroid, only in first person and a 3D open world, and you can explore. It doesn't really revolutionize the Metroid formula. It just puts it into a 3D format. Now, not to disparage them about that, because I mean, Sega hasn't been able to do that yet with Sonic the Hedgehog. They have not made a truly awe-inspiring, this is what a 3D Sonic the Hedgehog game should look like yet. The closest they got was Sonic Lost World. And then they took that formula and said, fuck that. Let's go back to the same running on rails, being chased by shit.
Because people didn't like it.
Yeah, well, it's their opinion.
So anyway, what retro needs right now is a fighting game equivalent to Killer Instinct, a beat 'em up equivalent to Battletoads, and a 3D action equivalent to Gemini Force in order to complete the similarities with Rare.
Well, I can tell you right now that probably ain't gonna happen, because
not with the crew that's working on them so far.
Yeah, I mean their games are, like I said, retro is good, but they're not Rare good. Like if Rare is gold, retro silver. Nothing wrong with silver. It's a nice metal. It's useful. But if you come with 3 bars of silver, it ain't gonna be worth as much as 3 bars of gold. All right.
Nice RPG reference there.
Okay, so I mean, like I said, I love retro. I like a lot of their games. I think they're well made. But my God, I'm tired. Like I'm tired of people popping up and being like, "Oh, well, they're the next Rare."
They're not Rare.
They're not
but
Rare.
They have the potential to try.
They can try. But it's not. It's like someone saying, "Well, we need to." Like people, it's like people say, "Well, there needs to be a game that surpasses, Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past or Super Mario 64 in terms of from those." But why can't you just let it be itself? Like no other Mario game, 3D Mario game, I don't care how fucking gorgeous it is going to surpass the iconic and moving the platform forward for 3D games like Mario 64 did, because Mario 64 was the first. It's like, yes, other Pokemon games have come out and they're great. But if that first one didn't come out, all the other ones wouldn't exist. So the first one is the most important, because if it didn't set the standard and didn't start the shit, nothing else would work. It's like that first motherfucker who figured out how to build a fire and cook shit over it. Very important person. Very important idea.
I mean, there's a belief that any king who has been on his throne for far too long needs to make room for fresh blood.
Yeah, but this is not an organic thing. This is just like, these are trendsetters. It's like no one is ever going to you're never going to surpass the first people who you're never going to surpass. It's like someone saying, "Hey man, someone needs to surpass Michael Jackson." No. Like there's never going to be another Michael Jackson. There's never going to be another Barry White. There's never going to be another Marvin Gaye. There's never going to be another Aretha Franklin. And I would be offended if some fucker came up here and said, "Yeah, I want to be the next Aretha Franklin." Fuck you, sir or madam. There's only one, and there can never be another. Okay, go do your own thing, but don't fuck with the queen. Okay, that's how I feel. There's certain games. It's like someone saying, "Yeah, we want to be the next Pong." No, you don't. There's only one. Okay, go do your own thing. You'll be much happier. Or do a twist on something that already exists. But don't think that you're gonna overcome the OG look.
Then might as well consider the original Donkey Kong Country as the pinnacle of the series rather than Diddy Kong's Quest.
Well, no, I don't actually. I think the first Donkey Kong Country is really good, and then they took all of that they took all of those gameplay designs and said, how can we make this better? And then they made a sequel, and Diddy Kong's Quest is better on a technical level than Donkey Kong Country. But here's the thing.
So there is a possibility to surpass the trend standards.
Yeah, but Donkey Kong, it's part of a series. They're all one continuous. It's like saying Super Mario Galaxy is a good game, but there's certain things about it that aren't perfected. But then they made the sequel, Mario Galaxy 2. Mario Galaxy 2 is better on a technical level than the first Mario Galaxy. But does that mean that the first Mario Galaxy is trash? No, it just means that while it is a very good game, there were certain small errors that could have made it better. Not that I'm saying, Mario Galaxy 2 comes out, I'm going to throw away Mario Galaxy.
What about Mario 64? Does it surpass it?
Surpass what? Mario Galaxy? I would say on a technical level that Mario Galaxy is a better game, but I mean they're two Super Mario 64 is while the base underlying formula is the same, Mario Galaxy on a technical level has surpassed aspects of Super Mario 64. But once again, goes back to my argument, a lot of the core concepts in Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 wouldn't exist if you didn't have the original. So I'm not gonna throw Mario 64 under the bus because of that. Because like I said, there's certain shit that just would have been better. I mean, and then there's some games where it's like they reach the pinnacle and they never reach that height. I mean, look at Final Fantasy 7. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy started out okay. The first Final Fantasy on the NES, okay. Final Fantasy 2 is an experiment. Final Fantasy 3, pretty good. Final Fantasy 4, that was considered to be the first time in that series where you had a story with epic storytelling and all that shit. Final Fantasy 5 didn't have nearly as good a story as 4, but everything else was better. Then you have Final Fantasy 6, which some people would argue is the best game in the old school Hironobu Sakaguchi series. And then you have Final Fantasy 7, which some people love. I personally consider it to be a derivative of Final Fantasy 6, except it's in 3D. And then Final Fantasy 8, which you never hear people defend that game.
Nope.
And you get Final Fantasy 9.
The battle system especially.
You get Final Fantasy 9, which is a good Final Fantasy 9 is kind of a throwback to old school Final Fantasy, but
now it's getting a resurgence.
My problem with Final Fantasy 9 is that it's a little too basic for me. It's a little too basic of a game, but I know some people who love it, so God bless them. And then Final Fantasy X, which, to be honest, Final Fantasy X is actually a good RPG. The only problem is that the primary protagonist who you first get introduced to is a fucking asshole. If
the world's biggest a-hole.
If Titus wasn't your introductory character in that game, it would be perfect. It would be the perfect Final Fantasy for Hironobu Sakaguchi to go out on. But because they made Titus the main character, it just kind of brings the whole thing down because Titus is utterly fucking unlikable. He's fucking unlikable. If he was a person, I'd throw him down a flight of steps. And then push a piano down after him. Yeah. Anyone here seen that Chappelle show where he's like, I'm getting revenge? And like he goes to this comedy club. He's like, what happened to you? He's like, well, you remember Dave Rizzo? Yeah. Well, he's in a wheelchair. It's like, well, what happened to you? Well, I'm in a wheelchair. It's like, well, I was gonna come here. I was gonna burn down the club, kill you. It's like, oh, but now, it makes me feel you don't know how sweet this is gonna be. He's like, no, what are you doing, man? He throws him down. He pushes him down the stairs in a wheelchair. I'm sorry. That's horrible, but also really funny. But anyway, yeah. But yeah. That's yeah. Final Fantasy. Like, has there been a Final Fantasy? Legitimately, objectively speaking, has there been a Final Fantasy released now that Hironobu Sakaguchi is gone that has surpassed some of the better ones in the past?
The only one that even tried to even come close is 12, and that was barely.
And that's not a Final Fantasy game. That's a Final Fantasy Tactics RPG. So we can just pull that out. Is there a Final Fantasy game that's been released since Hironobu Sakaguchi left that can surpass, Final Fantasy 4, 6, hell, 7?
And
there you go. All right.
Crickets.
And here's the thing. They keep on trying, which is like, stop. Make your own. Look, you can make something like the old ones, but stop saying, I want to reinvigorate Final Fantasy. You want to reinvigorate Final Fantasy? First of all, stop making male characters who are prettier than the female characters. Get that out the way. Number 2, why don't you change fucking protagonists? It's either some mannish looking chick, hello there, Lightning, or a dude who's pretty as fuck. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to play as a male protagonist who looks like a girl. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that. Okay?
If anything, use Bravely Default as a restart point for beep's sake.
And if you want to do something cool, why don't you make a Final Fantasy where the main character is a middle-aged man, or is like you start out as an old dude who's like an old knight an old hero who's all grizzled and like he's been through some shit, but he's gonna finish like he's finally hunted down the villain who caused all the things, who caused all the problems in the world. But just as he lands the finishing blow, the villain gets off a spell that reverses time. So now the hero turns into a young man, but he's still got the scars and the experience that he accrued years of fighting. But he's a dude. He's not some pretty boy who looks like he should be in a gay club. Okay, like he's a grown ass man. He's maybe has a beard. Like he's seen some shit. Okay, I'd like to play that game. Or hell, have a female character who wears real fucking armor, not shit that looks pretty. Okay.
I was about to say, don't pull the female armor trope.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. That's all I'm fucking asking. Stop. Look, that's because Final Fantasy wasn't like that until these new fuckers came in. All right.
Nomura.
Yeah, that son of a bitch. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's anything else before we move on to the main topic?
No, we can move on. All
right then. So here we go. The main topic. Let's do the first.
This is based off a video that someone recently sent up on the air.
Well, no, I was going to do Sega first.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to use Sega in my comparison because, well, Sega is the poster boy of failure.
Well, Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
They are the poster boy of failure. So basically, we have an article here where someone says, basically, their supposition is that the reason Sega failed was because of the first reason they say is Bernie Stoller. The second reason is troubled game productions. The third reason is the delays and cancellation of important games. The media sabotaging and backlash. The Nintendo curse. The rise of Sony. suffering profits, first-party IPs were mediocre at best, important Japanese games weren't able to come to the Western world, and the failure of the transition of Sonic to jump from 2D to 3D. Okay, then. I'm going to take each of these points and dismantle them.
I was going to say, I could dismantle one easily off the bat, and that would be the Nintendo curse.
Well, I'm gonna dismantle them logically. Okay, Bernie Stoller. Bernie Stoller is the face that many people give to Sega being fucked in the West during the 5th gen because he said the Saturn's not our future.
And he denied RPGs on the Saturn.
Yeah, but here's the thing, okay? Bernie Stoller is a convenient scapegoat, but I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, okay? The reason Sega left the first party has nothing to do with Bernie Stoller. Bernie Stoller is a symptom of a disease that was there long before he got there.
And if I remember, I think it was probably their arguments of Sega NA and Sega Japan.
That's a part of it. That's actually the second part. The first part is that Sega was doomed to fail from the start because Sega's core business model was a snake eating itself, and I'll explain that later on as I counter these arguments. And the second thing is that basically you had two distinct halves of the company. Well, actually, it was 2.5. You had Sega of America and Europe fighting Sega of Japan. And a house divided against itself will not
won't stand long.
Well, no, not long. It's not going to stand. It'll, like, go ahead. If you have a 3-sided house, and there are some people that do, take out a side. See what happens. Take a triangle. Take out one of the sides. It collapses, okay, every time. 100% of the time, it falls apart. So anyway, troubled game productions. I mean, every company has games they cancel. So that's not really, Nintendo. Nintendo has games that fail and that they have to cancel and say, well, fuck this. I mean, that's not really, this is the reason. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, and some games even get revived after being canceled.
Or, they take the core thing and they go do something else with it. But by and large, that's not really the reason a company can leave, go away. The delays and cancellation of important games. That goes back to my second argument. A lot of games are going to get delayed and canceled. I mean, there's lots of stuff that doesn't get past the demo stage. Or even before the demo stage, just shooting ideas. The media sabotaging and backlash. Okay.
I mean, the Sega Dreamcast did receive some type of sabotage and backlash, but when their games got ported onto on other gen consoles like Xbox, what were once previously panned games now receive some positive reviews.
Here's what I'm going to say. The Dreamcast, when it first came out,
it was on a timer, as far as I could tell, because the PlayStation 2 was coming right behind them.
Yeah. Basically, here's the thing. Sega rushed to get the Dreamcast out. They knew this was their last hurrah, and they thought if it could go well, they might be able to stay in the business. It did not go well because the PS2 came out, and the PS2 came out as a DVD player on top of that. See, here's the thing, okay? The reason Sony's consoles sell well is because they're also something else. They aren't just a video game console, okay? Like, Sega's console is...
They're multimedia.
Yeah, Sony's console, the PS1 was a CD player. PS2 was a DVD player. PS3 was a Blu-ray player. PS4 is a Blu-ray player / streaming machine. Like, all their consoles, also have a secondary or a tertiary function. Sega just made video game consoles, okay? But, they were also very reactionary, which is one of their core business models that fucked them over. So I'm not going to say the media sabotaged them. It's like, why should I spend this much money on a thing that doesn't have the functionality of its competitor, which was the PS2? That's where they kind of fucked up a little bit. The Nintendo curse, that makes no sense because, I mean, the Nintendo curse is apropos for companies that fuck over Nintendo, but Sega basically, I don't think they fucked over Nintendo. They took a gun and shot themselves in the foot and then said, yeah, foot, that's for fucking up. I'm going to shoot the other foot if you keep on fucking up. I shoot this other foot too. The rise of Sony.
Sony was on their own track.
Here's what I'll say. That's a false argument because, essentially speaking,
I mean, the PS1 and the Saturn were coexisting.
Exactly. And not only that, it wasn't that Sony came up, that Sega was reactive to Sony instead of doing their own thing. But when I get to my two counter arguments that sum up why Sega failed, you'll see what I'm talking about. Suffering profits, ooh boy. Yes.
They overstocked. I mean, they overshot themselves with too much product and not enough selling.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. There's more to it than that, but that's a part of it. And then finally, first-party IPs were mediocre at best. Like Sega
depends on the title you're aiming for.
Some really good first-party IPs that could have been awesome on the Dreamcast, but Sega just did not have the money, nor the time, nor the energy, nor the capital to really put it forward to build it. Important Japanese games didn't come to the Western world.
That follows what the previous point did, doesn't it?
That's kind of that's a restating of the previous point, so I'm going to ignore that one.
And JRPGs that remained Japanese exclusive to the Saturn.
Yeah, and then there's the failure transition of Sonic. Yeah, but Sonic has not been good in 3D for years now. So, I mean,
Sonic's habitat has always been 2D, and every time he goes to 3D,
do it.
He doesn't do well. I'm trying to be nice.
It's like someone saying.
But then you have Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, which proves that they can work in 3D.
Yeah, but the problem with Sonic Generations and Sonic Colors is that those games, while they might be in 3D, are still using the same formula of you're running away from something, you're running towards something, kind of shoddy platforming. It's not like a true 3D game. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. You want to know what was a Sega 3D game that really felt like if they just made it a little bit faster, it could have been a Sonic game? Billy Hatcher. Yeah, Billy Hatcher is a 3D game. You explore in 3D. There's shit to do in 3D, and you're not. Oh, I'm being chased by something in the distance. Let me dodge this shit. Oh, I'm running towards the screen. I'm running away from it. Like it's a 3D game. Sonic games, even when they're in 3D, by and large, aren't really 3D.
They're more like 2.5, right?
Well, no, they're more like Banjo-Kazooie in terms of running away from something, running towards something. Occasionally, you have a 2D game. Like it's like not Banjo-Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot. It's like because I mean, here's the thing: we've played 3D games that are true 3D games, and none of the Sonic games that are quote unquote 3D play like a 3D game that we know. Like no Sonic game plays like a Banjo-Kazooie. Or even a Mario 64. And those are true 3D games. Like you're in an open world, there's shit going on. Hey, you see that mountain? You can go to that mountain. Oh, cool. Sonic the Hedgehog. Hey, you see that mountain? Well, there's a lake between you and that mountain, so you're pretty much fucked. Hey, you see that city? See how beautiful that city is? I'm gonna go down that street. Oh no, there's an invisible wall. You can't go down that street. It's just bad game design. But anyway, so here's my argument for why Sega failed. Basically, my first argument was Sega failed because their core business model was doomed, was the snake eating its own tail. What was Sega's whole thing? They were going to bring the arcade to your home, right? Right? That was the whole tenet of Sega's home console business was we will bring the arcade to your home. What happened in the mid-90s to arcades?
The arcades started to dwindle away.
That's right. And the reason why our home arcades fell apart is because people realized that arcade games are shallow as fuck, okay? They are designed to be really hard and make you spend quarters on credits, okay? Home console games, on the other hand, had to have depth to them. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Okay, go and play any of Sega's home arcade ports. They're shallow as fuck. It's like you play Virtual Racing.
They're
three
simple.
tracks in 2 cars.
Crazy Taxi.
Let me put it this way, okay? If someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I want you to play $60 for this racing game." Oh, cool. What are the features? It's got 3 tracks and 2 cars. You can go fuck yourself.
I was about to say, if it had one more car or one more track, then it would be $60 for 6 things.
It would be like, you could go fuck yourself.
I was gonna say it was, if they're gonna get a fuck you, at least make it even F you.
A round fuck you, a nice round.
Yes.
Six cars. Seriously, 6 fucking cars, and it's 3 tracks, and 2 cars, and neither of the cars really race that much differently from one another. So it's like, and this is the shit. Like, here's the thing, okay? There's nothing wrong with arcade ports, but like arcade ports, like it was a big deal to have arcade ports back in the day because arcade games, home console, like during the Atari age or the 3rd gen, like arcade ports were a big deal because the arcades were so much more advanced than what you had for your home conversion. But here's the thing.
Like,
during the 4th gen, especially during the 4th gen, and even during the 3rd gen, like developers for home games figured out, okay, if we make the home version, we can actually, because of the limitations, we can make it better by changing things around. Look at the conversion of Rygar from arcade to home. Yeah, it's a completely different game. It's like you can do some amazing things by just like embracing the limitations and doing something different. Now, Sega, their entire business model was built on bringing the arcade to you, bringing these simple games over to the home to the home market. But here's the problem.
The games need content.
Well, not just that. It's just they're overly simplistic. Like over time, the arcade started to go down, so people didn't give a fuck as much. And Sega had some first party IPs, but they weren't really utilizing them very well, right? And that kind of, because Sega was an arcade company first at the time and home stuff second. But over time, as arcades died, they were like, shit, which is sad because, like I said, I love some of Sega's arcade games, but they were overly simplistic. Like Outrun, Super Hang-On, that game where you're the kid with the jetpack shooting shit that's coming towards you. I mean, it's not bad, but I'm not like, oh my God, this game blew my mind. Okay. So basically, like I said, their entire business model was built on something that was eventually going to run out because people were losing interest in arcades, like, because you could get better versions of games. Like believe it or not, the best version of Gauntlet Legends is the N64 version because it's better than the arcade. Because Sega had an arcade perfect port of Gauntlet Legends on the Dreamcast, and it's kind of shitty because it's basically just an arcade port. There's no new features, there's no new levels. It's just the arcade, except you don't have to put in quarters, which is cool. But I mean, if I'm paying $60 for a game, which is far more than what I would put into play an arcade game, I think I deserve some extra content. Besides, it's slightly prettier graphics, and I can play it at my house. So Sega's whole core base model, and then you had they were basically fighting against each other because basically Sega of America and Europe held on to the Genesis for so fucking long. They made peripherals that had the R&D of fucking making a full-on console that failed spectacularly, like the Sega CD. which they made because they were being reactive to Sony. Oh, Sony's making a CD-based console. Well, shit, we need a CD-based console. Sega CD. Oh shit.
And Palm.
Oh shit. Sony's coming out with a 32-bit console. Oh shit, we need a 32-bit add-on for the Sega Genesis. 32X, yeah.
If I remember right, how many attachments were to the Sega Genesis? 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, there were three. There were three. There was the base converter, which lets you play Sega Genesis game, or Master System games. Then, because Master System games were in a cue card, some of them were in a cue card, like a little card thing, and some of them were cartridges, but the cartridge slot was different. Then you had the light gun attachment. Then you had the modem, so that's 3. Oh shit, more than that. Then you had the Sega channel, that's 4. Then you had the 32X, that's 5. And they had the Sega CD, so that's 6. 6 attachments.
Okay, I was off by 1. I said 5.
Well, because I forgot about the modem and the Sega TV, the Sega channel. So my point is this, okay? All of these things cost money to make. All of them took lots of R&D. It was like basically creating the 32X and the Sega CD were like creating an entirely new system. That's R&D money, and these did not sell well. Okay, and I'm not even including the Nomad and the Game Gear, which also the Game Gear did okay, but not great. The Nomad was a financial failure. So basically,
I was about to say that Nomad was a failure, even though it was able to play Sega games on the go.
Yeah, but they never sold enough units to make up for what they spent in R&D creating it and marketing it, because it just
As I said,
battery, because it took what 4D batteries, like 6C batteries, something like that. Like that thing had a battery like 2 hours if you were lucky.
I was gonna say it Dracula the batteries, and they were 6 AA's.
Yeah, but anyway, so basically, yeah, Sega was doomed to fail. You had, their whole business model was like everything about Sega was built like, okay, the reason they got into the home console business was because they saw that the Atari was doing well. So they created their original systems, which were basically Atari clones. And then they made the Master System because they heard Nintendo was coming out with a system, the Famicom. And then they made the Sega Genesis was made to do what Nintendo don't, but it was made to compete against the Nintendo, not the Super Nintendo. And then when the Super Nintendo came out, like the Sega Genesis was very successful. Like I think at some point they had like 65% of the market in North America, which used to be Nintendo's market. But then Nintendo came out with the Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo basically beat them back and destroyed their market share. Like they wound up having like 30% of the market by the end of it. So they lost 50% of their market share once Nintendo was finished with them. And then this is on top of them essentially stabbing themselves in the side with add-ons that just they were spending huge amounts of R&D money on to make. 32X, I stabbed myself in my spleen. Oh, Sega CD, oh no. And then when that shit didn't work, they're like, okay, we'll do the Saturn. The Saturn.
They really dropped the ball on the Saturn.
Well, the Saturn was them being reactionary, because when the PlayStation came out, they're like, oh shit, okay, we'll do the Saturn and we'll add an extra processor that no one knows how to fucking use for whatever reason. Because the Saturn
just like how nobody has ever used blast processing on the Genesis ever.
Well, there's no such thing as blast processing. What happened is that the processor on the Sega Genesis was overclocked because they were using old ass parts and they wanted to soup them up a little bit, so they're overclocked. That's big deal. Like it's an overclocked processor. You can overclock the processor in a Super Nintendo. It'll make your games run faster, sometimes to their detriment, but you can do it. But my point is this, okay? Sega's entire business model was built on a finite resource that was destroying itself over time, because the more games that came that were based on an arcade game that came to the home consoles that were better than what you got in the arcades, the less of an incentive people had to want to play those games. Like, why would you want to play an arcade port of a game when you could play the home conversion that's better than the arcade port? You know what I mean? So I mean, Sega failed, and they had multiple consoles that failed. They had consoles that failed. They advertised the shit out of them. I remember those Dreamcast commercials where they had the Saturn commercials where they had that guy with the blue head who looked like Kratos' lost uncle, and long lost uncle. You know, and the Dreamcast commercials with that chick who looked like an alien with the oval-shaped head, you know, and it didn't work. It failed. It failed miserably. And here's the thing: I have a Dreamcast. I love my Dreamcast. There's some really awesome games on the Dreamcast, like Mr. Mosquito and Seaman, Seaman, and Phantasy Star Online, which is fucking awesome, bro. The original Soul Edge, you know, there's some really good games for the system, but ultimately Sega was doomed to fail because they spent their time, like, really what Sega should have done. Sega should have done is, okay, they released the Genesis. They support the Genesis until, instead of doing those shitty add-ons, they support the Genesis, biding their time, and then they release the Saturn, right? And they actually they hold off and they release the Saturn with like a year after the PlayStation. And they release it with like a good bevy of first-party games to show it off. Some like a sports title, maybe a football game or a basketball game, a 3D, a solid 3D Sonic the Hedgehog. Doesn't have to be great, but just good, or even a 2D one. I don't care. Something like a good Sonic the Hedgehog game. Maybe a new Golden Axe, something like that. You know, stuff like that. Bernie Stoller, like I said, Bernie Stoller was a symptom. He wasn't the disease itself. But yeah, I mean, like, that's why Sega left. It wasn't, everyone's like, well, it's because of this, that, and the other. No, it's their business model was fucked from the start. You know, it's like if you have an oil-based economy, right? Your entire economy is built upon supplying petroleum, raw petroleum that is refined into oil, right? What happens when everyone switches over to hybrid or fully electric cars?
Gas prices go down.
No, your economy that's based on providing oil is fucked, because basically, like, no one's using your product anymore.
One product to another, if you don't keep up, well, Sonic's taunt will be the best line. You're too slow.
Like, seriously, like, okay, it's like, think of it like this, okay? Like why would you go, like, if you know how to cook a steak like perfectly, medium, nicely charred, well seasoned, that's better than the top of the line steak restaurant, why would you go? I mean, you know, like, if you make your own stuff, that place is going to lose money because you don't need to go to them for that thing, or you found an alternative. Well, that's the problem with Sega, was that their entire business model was built upon something that had a finite resource and was running out. And they never did the transition from making pushing their home stuff to just, oh, we're bringing the arcade home. Well, that's cool in the early 90s, late 80s. But once the mid 90s come and the late 90s come, no one gave a shit about arcade ports, because the arcades, especially in America, were dying. All right, like, no one gave a fuck about an arcade. Okay, the only reason, like, that's neither here nor there, but you get what I'm saying. Which brings us to our last bit of our
main topic.
Which is, I mean, you know, the Wii U.
Yeah, it's more to do with a response to the article I posted, isn't it?
Not really, no. It's to do with people saying, it's to do with the general idea that people have about the system, that it was it was, there's three arguments people make about the Wii U. The Wii U failed because Nintendo didn't market it, but that's not true. They did market it. The marketing wasn't effective. Yeah, the marketing wasn't effective. It wasn't as effective as it could have been. Like they marketed it to, like I remember because there were commercials for that on Nicktoons and Nickelodeon, the Disney Channel.
They were marketed towards families.
They were marketed towards families, but you like the commercials were kind of weird and didn't really explain what the system could do that made it. Well, why should you have this? They didn't properly tell you what features were with the system. And to be fair, I mean, when you get a Nintendo console, I mean, at least for me, when I think a Nintendo console, I don't really care that much about the little gimmicks that they have for it. I'm just like, oh, well, I get to play Nintendo games. Okay, I'm cool, by and large. But I mean, I'm a Nintendo gamer, so they don't need, like, the gimmick doesn't really mean that much to me. I just want to play Nintendo game. But the Joe Blow average gamer doesn't give a shit about that. So in that case, the commercials weren't for, you know what I mean? They weren't as effective at that. But here's the thing: there's tons of consoles that had shitty marketing that also failed.
Yeah, and I was going to say that the people that were supposed to tell how the system ran, they didn't do their job right, or it didn't work at all.
And not just that, you also had you had the media basically sabotaging that system. The video game, you had a lot of, well, I don't know what the Wii U's for, and
I consider those.
Wii, and
I consider those guys the bigger reason that the Wii U failed.
Well, I mean,
they tried to do it again with the Switch. Yeah,
except the Switch sold well, so they had to shut the fuck up and be quiet. But I mean, basically, what I'm saying is that it kind of was like it was a very easy thing for them to do, and because there's an anti-Nintendo bias out there. Not all the media, but a lot of them. Like a lot of those. Look, like once the Switch generations is over and Nintendo comes out with their next console, you see those motherfuckers pop up and say, "Ah, man, look."
They'll be like, console. I was gonna say,
garbage.
I call those guys the Nintendo weeds. I mean, you may pluck them, but
they keep on popping back up. Yeah, it's like it's over. It's never over. They're like a villain from a comic book series. But I mean, so, and then the second reason I think the people like to say, the second argument that people like to make about the Wii U failing is, well, it didn't have games. That is true. In the first 2 months.
I was going to say the first year and the first month they had a rough time trying to make games.
Well, I mean, first party games. The first 3 months of the system, it actually sales wise, its momentum was on track to be higher than the Wii's. The problem is that after the first 3 months, because it came out that November, if I remember correctly, or was it?
It's the result of a long drought.
Yeah, you had about 6 months. Like once January hit, you had about 6 months of practically nothing coming out for the system, except for the Virtual Console, and you didn't get anything until Splatoon. Mario Kart 8. It was
I was going to say that this is in a way supposed to be where the third parties came to supplement the system. And
the big thing that you always hear about third parties, this is in the scuttlebutt when they're being real. The reason we don't support Nintendo systems is because we can't compete with. Say it with me, folks. We can't compete.
with games.
And they never give us a chance to compete. So Nintendo for the Wii U said, okay, we're going to give you a year. We're going to give you literally no competition, and they did. And what did third parties do with that window of?
They abandoned the Wii U.
No competition.
They ran away.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm
not surprised, but I'm also disappointed at the same time.
It's Nintendo's fault for believing third parties, but it's third parties' fault for, basically being two-faced sons of bitches. But they've always been two-faced sons of bitches, so Nintendo shouldn't have listened to them. Nintendo
If
system.
anything,
Fuck you.
I was going to say Nintendo may have tried to give him a handouts, like try to show trust to show that they are actually trying to listen. But the third parties, well, they're snakes.
Yeah, they're two-faced bastards. So, you know, and
now a couple of them have a new argument saying that adult games don't sell well on Nintendo systems.
yeah, and then Bayonetta 2 comes out, and that sells well. So basically, that leads to my final argument, to the third one, which is basically, I'm fucking tired of people saying that. Well, the reason that we don't play, what's the big one? The reason, that the Wii U the Wii U didn't make any money. Oh boy.
Tell me, how many times do we have to say that Nintendo always works towards being in the black?
Well, the system was profitable, so I'm not really gonna be like, oh well, you know, they didn't make any money. Yeah, they made money. The system was profitable. It
Not as much as they anticipated.
yeah, I mean, it's like here's the thing, okay? Like for Nintendo to say the Wii U was going to sell, like really, I don't think the Switch is going to surpass the Wii's sales numbers. Like I don't.
Of course they did. Of course they only care about the software sales.
Yeah, because the install base, like, but even then, I don't think it's gonna surpass the Wii sales numbers software wise for some of those high hitting. Like, I don't think the next Mario Kart game is gonna outsell Mario Kart Wii. Well, here's the thing, it doesn't need to. If it gets 2/3 of what they made on that game, that's pretty damn good, you know. So I mean, you shouldn't expect to duplicate shit time and time again because that's unrealistic. With that being said, the Wii U was financially profitable for Nintendo. It underperformed compared to the Wii, but like I said, like why would you compare yourself to the Wii? Like that's that's
Well, I mean, it was trying to piggy bank on the Wii's success.
That is true. Okay, business wise, that makes sense. You know, you have a really successful console. Why don't you try and capitalize on that success? And it had like 100 million plus install base, so that makes sense. It's like if they make a successor to the 3DS, with the 3DS being almost 80 million install base, it would be stupid for Nintendo to say, well, that 80 million install base, fuck them. Let's not try and reach out to some of those people, because you already have a ready-made base of people who are going to buy your product, possibly. Knock on wood. Now, to be fair, I mean, me personally, I don't know. You know, me personally, I like my Wii U. A lot of people like to make the argument that, there's a cycle and, people just feel this way. It just boils down to how you feel about the system. Like, there were people who did not get a Super Nintendo because, their parents bought the systems. Like, well, I'm not getting it just because it's Super. That was the argument they made. Back in the day, and the same thing from the Super Nintendo to the N64, the N64 to the GameCube to the Wii. But here's the difference between the GameCube to the Wii. The GameCube to the Wii, you could literally play those games on your Wii. You could play your Wii games on your Wii U. So literally, yeah, you could buy the enhanced version of Pikmin, or you could just go and pick up Pikmin 1 on your on the cheap for the GameCube and just play it on your Wii. Like, I mean, here's the thing. I have no problem rebuying old games, but I'm not gonna pay unless you're adding a substantial amount of content to the new game. I'm not gonna pay full price for the shit because I'm cheap. And I also don't like feeling like someone's taking advantage of my money.
They aren't expecting people who already bought the previous version to rebuy it. They are expecting people.
Oh no, because they want the new people. Now this is me being selfish. I think that the new people who didn't buy a Wii U and didn't get those games, fuck them. I'm sorry, but I mean, if the reason you didn't buy a Wii U because you just didn't have the money for it, or some shit,
That's understandable.
That's understandable. If you didn't get a Wii U, if someone asked, well, why didn't you get a Wii U? Well, because you can't say there weren't good games on the Wii U.
I was gonna name off a few of the reasons I heard. It's a kiddie console. Nintendo's games are the games that Nintendo has on there is not quality enough, and
or they don't have any
Wii
games that interest me, like anime games or some sort.
But like I said, I've seen tons of games. I've seen tons of arguments, but here's the thing, okay? Those are subjective. Like, okay, saying, okay, why don't you own a PS4? Because like 75% of the games that are on the PS4 also came to PC. And if I have a gaming PC, what the fuck do I need with another shittier gaming PC? Because that's what these consoles are. They're like a lesser gaming PC.
At least two of them, because one actually admits that it's a toy.
All right, so it's like, what's the point? That's a valid reason not to own something. If you already have something that can play the games you want to play, why buy a new thing that's going to do that? Like, why add more expense to your hobby? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if you have a pizzeria next to your house that makes really great pizza, and they have great prices, great pizza, why the fuck would you drive 20 miles away to get pizza that's the same but 20 miles away just to go back home and eat it when there's one right across the street? You know what I'm saying? Like that makes no sense. But none of these people make that argument. The arguments they make are lame and subjective. Like, well, it doesn't have any good games for it. It's got Splatoon. That was a worldwide phenomenon. It's got Smash Brothers. That's always a hit. It's got Bayonetta 2. That's kind of more of a niche game, but it's really good. Let's see what else. What other big games were on the Wii U?
There's Star Fox Zero, The Wonderful 101.
Yeah, Star Fox Zero was too controversial, so I didn't include it.
And there's
Wonderful 101, ultra niche. It's a good game, but ultra niche.
And there's Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
There's your anime game. You got your anime game for you people.
Though they are asking for a licensed anime game, not an RPG game with an anime art style.
I don't know. I consider Fire Emblem to be anime to be licensed.
Licensed anime game like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto.
No, I get what you're saying. But
we got our platformers.
My point is this: it was a valid system that was not supported by the people, and so the way I feel about it is, they want to play the whole game. Fuck them. You should have got it when it was available. You can't do it now. Too bad. It's like this, okay? I saw Aretha Franklin in concert before she died. Like literally, she died like a month after that concert. Okay.
Dang.
People are gonna say, "Oh, wow, you saw Aretha Franklin?" Yes. I wish I could have seen her. Too bad. You missed it. Oh, well, fuck you. You should have been there.
Oh, that's.
I know that. I'm being a little bit facetious, but my point is that if you didn't get to do something when the time was right, you shouldn't get a second chance. Because especially if your reason is lame, if you're like, well, I didn't have the money, or I had other things I needed to do. But if you were just being a vindictive asshole, like a lot of these people who didn't get a Wii U, it's not because of a valid reason. Well, I had other consoles, or I wasn't that much into gaming, or I wanted to play something else. No, it's because they bowed down to peer pressure, and I didn't like, I don't like these. This game's too kiddie, or I don't want to play Mario and Kirby. It's like, okay, fine, but these are the same gamers who buy a PS4 and only play one or two games, and the rest of the shit they play is fucking is streaming Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. These are the same people.
I was gonna say, it's most likely one of those one of those two games that they rarely get, or EA games.
And frankly speaking, I'm tired of it. Yeah, they get a sports game and a shooter. So it's like a Madden and a Halo, or a FIFA and a
Destiny.
Destiny. Yeah, it's something like that. Like that's what they get. So I mean, like I said, for me, I don't feel sorry for those people. I'm sorry. I know people are going to get angry. Like, well, shouldn't they get to enjoy? Well, they should have enjoyed it when it was here.
That sounds like some real gatekeeping over there.
No, that's not gatekeeping. That's literally you should, like, okay. It's like you go to a fair. It's like they have. It's kind of like when you go out with your friends go out and they have an epic night and some really cool shit happens and you miss it. It's like, man, I wish I was there. Yeah, well, you didn't make it. I mean, look, there's nothing I can do for you. You know, you should have came out when you had a chance. If you didn't, not my problem. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't. I mean, you know, it's not that hard. Okay. It's not like the Wii U was unavailable. It's not like it was hard to get. Okay. It's not like let's see, what was a really hard console to get your hands on? It's not like the Atari Jaguar. That was a hard console to get your hands on.
I was gonna say, what about the Wonder Swan handheld systems?
Yeah, the Wonder Swan, the TurboGrafx 16, those were hard consoles to get your hands on. So basically, it's like it was really hard. So, you know, if you say, man, I wish they would port those games over, fair enough. You know, that's not gatekeeping. That's saying, you know, you're like, basically your arguments as to why you didn't get to play these games are, frankly speaking, asinine and stupid. So you shouldn't get a reprieve for being asinine and stupid. I'm sorry. That's like someone saying, man, feel sorry for me because I stuck my hand in this boiling water. Why would you do that? Well, frankly speaking, I knew it was hot and boiling, but I did it just because I wanted to prove a point. I should feel sorry for you because you did something stupid? I'm sorry. I'm not going to feel sorry for someone for being an asshole. I can't. It's against my nature. I feel sorry for people who, undeservedly had something happen to them. I feel sorry for the people who bought Dreamcast and were really invested in that system. And Sega was like, well, too bad.
Yeah. And if anything, I just remembered one of the reasons why I am sad that Nintendo moved on from the Wii U, but feel really terrible about how PlayStation treated the Vita. Nintendo kept with their system throughout all of its time in existence, and didn't give up on it until they made their last game. While Sony, well,
does anyone I don't know about you guys, but I'm really not like Sony. Basically, they supported the Vita for
a year,
like a short period of time, and then acted surprised.
I was being generous with the year thing.
They supported it for a short period of time, like not even a year. They supported that shit for less than a year. It was like half a year, like 6 months. And they put out some half-ass games for it that were
basically tech demos.
I'm trying to put this nicely, but I can't really, because it's really hard to put this nicely because they put out glorified tech demos, and they were like, why won't you buy my glorified tech demos? Because they're glorified tech demos. Yeah,
and they basically dropped support almost as soon as it came out.
Yeah, basically.
Like they barely even gave it connectivity to the PS3 the PS4, and you could play your games from the PlayStation system on your handheld.
Remember all the Sony fanboys who were like, yeah, when the PS4 comes out, the Vita is gonna be connected to. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember how they made excuses for that shit? That was kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie.
And who could forget this one line? We of the PlayStation crew are going to bring handheld gaming out of the video game ghetto.
Yeah, but that was for
Nintendo.
That was for the PSP. That wasn't for the Vita. But anyway, the Vita. The hilarious thing about the Vita is that, like, basically when the PS4 took off and the Vita just like stagnated and died, Sony swept that thing under the rug, like when your dog shits and you don't want to pick it up, so you just you take the baggie and you just kind of push it in the bushes to hide that your dog took a shit. Like that's basically what Sony did with the Vita. They were ashamed of the handheld, and I'm like, the Vita could have been a viable console competitor for
the 3DS.
For the 3DS, but and don't believe that bullshit excuse. Well, the reason the Vita failed is because of the mobile gaming market. It's like, we'll go tell that to Nintendo with their almost 80 million 3DS. That argument doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, especially when if anything, Nintendo is able to and can make another handheld system.
Well, I only have. I think we've reached the end of it. Anyone have anything they want to add before we wrap things up?
Let me take some quick looks. Any other breaking news from my sources?
Ooh,
while he's looking, I'll just add one more thing to
yes, Burger Time is coming back.
What?
Burger Time is coming back.
You mean
wait a second. You mean that arcade game that was way back featuring burgers, toppings, and a chef?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
It's coming to the Switch, and it's called Burger Time Party.
Oh.
So it's a party game.
It's basically a new version of Burger Time that features enhanced graphics and it supports up to 4 players.
So it's a party game. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I never really gave that much of a shit about old arcade games like that. Like for me, the golden age of the arcades is like late '80s to the mid, not mid, but like
somewhere near the NES and Super NES era, right?
No, for me, it's around 88. It's like 87 to like 94. So that's not mid 90s. That's around the mid 90s. So for me, it's like late 80s, early 90s. Late 80s, mid 90s. Like for me, that's the golden age of arcades. Like when you got your Donkey Kongs, your Donkey Kong Juniors, your Rastans, your Double Dragons, your Renegades, stuff like that.
Late to the party.
Someone did Shadow Clone Jutsu.
Oh, sorry, it's because my Google Chrome crashed.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Anyhow, you were saying.
Looking at some screenshots, it looks like there's a single player content for a Burger Time Party. I don't know. More details. It says that more details will come out later in 2019.
I mean, I guess that's cool. Okay, here's some news for you. D&D company Wizards of the Coast announced today that it is opening a new studio in Austin, Texas, that will be headed up by former BioWare stalwart James Olin. Olin left BioWare last year after a 22-year career. during which he amassed design and writing credits, including the Baldur's Gate series, Neverwinter Nights, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, and Dragon Age Origins. So that's why Anthem's a piece of shit. Oh, no. Now we know, because the talent is leaving the company. I didn't think I would be back in the games industry so soon, but working with Wizards is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Our mutual love of RPGs, world building, and interactive storytelling is a perfect match. So that's some breaking news for you. That's it. I got nothing. Anyway, anyone want to bring up anything before we wrap things up?
Let's see. I do have one more piece of information.
Go ahead.
So, Masahiro Sakurai is publishing a book in Japan talking about his game development.
Let me guess the title: How not to have your arm fall off while you're starring Masahiro Sakurai, as written by Masahiro Sakurai.
You're such a ham, Miss. You're such a ham, Red.
My arm fell off. Oh shit!
From the book and from one of the previews of the book, it mentions that there's an image of Sakurai's figure collection, and the purpose of those figures is to take a closer look at them when designing the characters for Super Smash Brothers. And he says that, and it also says that the figures for characters figures of unannounced characters are not shown in pictures, and people took this as a hint that the 4 remaining DLC fighters might have a figure of their own, and people are trying to guess who those characters might be.
I'd be cool with it. I mean, like, here's the thing. I like Sakurai. I feel that Smash Brothers Ultimate's his last Smash Brothers. I think the series might go on, but it's going to be different from henceforth because, Masahiro Sakurai is not going to be making it anymore. And he had, the games made by him have a very distinct feel because he recycles a lot of gameplay designs over and over and over again, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like you can tell that he recycles a lot of shit. Like I said, not a bad thing, but it's there. And I know some people will be like, how can you say that? It's true. I don't want to hear no guff from anybody about it either. Stop myself from cursing. But yeah, I mean, so I mean,
Oh, yeah, and he also tells people to stop assuming everything I say is a hint to Smash.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Like I could imagine like he's hanging out with his friends. Yeah, man, I gotta go take a shit. Oh man, shit's gonna be the new character in the next match. No, I just gotta go take a shit. I could see that. Yeah, that'd be ridiculous because he's going about his business. He's at a restaurant. Yeah, he's at one of the numerous burger places in Tokyo. I mean, in Japan. He's like, yeah, I think I'll have a burger with some fries. Let me guess. Next character in Smash Bros. Is going to be a gigantic burger. That'll be a new costume for a Mii fighter. No, I just want a burger. What the fuck's wrong with you? You stupid.
I think a better accusation would be, does that mean that Burger Time is going to be in Smash?
Hey, I see you're using earthworms to fish, and earthworm Jim's gonna be next character in Smash Bros. Ain't it?
That's more like it.
Are you? No, I'm just asking you what bait you're using to fish with, dumbass. Yeah, I mean, I like Sakurai. I think he's one of the last of like old school gamers. I wish that, old school developers, because we're seeing more and more old school developers leave. You know what I mean? Or go do something else. And it's sad because like the video game industry has a problem because you don't have the older generation teaching the younger generation how to make games, which is why you see new new installments and franchises where someone new is taken over and the games are markedly worse than previous installments because the old talent has left, and that's a problem. So, and no one's trained the old staff. And Sakurai is one of those people who has never had, you know, a mentorship role with a younger generation, even though for his age he looks really young himself. But you know, he's getting up there. He's in his mid to early to late 40s, I think. But anyway, let's see. So anyone have anything? Jewel, you want to say something, and we kind of cut you off by accident. So, Jewel,
you're there.
I'm here.
yeah, you said you wanted to say something, and then we accidentally cut you off.
Okay, just that if anything, I was going to say that if anything, I'm just hoping that we at least don't have another Wii U mishap, but that's as likely as winning the lottery.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, here's some news, some breaking news. Philip Mewson, you know, the guy who
No.
The guy who plagiarized.
Oh, Mewson.
Yeah, Philip Mewson, who
A plagiarist.
plagiarized all that stuff at IGN, finally did an apology where he well, kind of an apology. It was a textbook apology. He basically went in and listed everything he'd done that was fucked up. And basically, he said that the reason he did the stuff he did was because he was under pressure to produce, and he just, you know, he did what he did in order to get
Even
in order to compete and do what he had to do. I mean, personally, I don't feel that strongly about it. Like, I'm not angry or happy about it. But me personally, I just don't. How can I put this? Me personally,
you don't give a beep to trash that put out so much garbage that was ridiculous.
well, he stole people's work and labeled it as his own. Like, and then like the most egregious thing is that initially he wouldn't admit that he did it, even though like when you plagiarize, the shit's in writing. Like literally, it's in writing. Like you can't. Well, nah. And then he threw down the gauntlet on the shit, even though it was in writing and easily found. which is equivalent. The equivalent is like someone saying it's like you lying to your parents that you don't know what your grades are. Whereas your parents can easily go and find your grades. They can call the school and get your grades. So why lie about it? Because it's in writing. Like you can't lie about that shit because it's very easy to find out the truth. So why lie about it? And yet that's what they did. That's what he did. And then on top of that, like it took 8 months for him to make this apology. It shouldn't take you 8 months to apologize for some shit like that. Like when you get caught that raw, you just got to be honest. Yeah, you caught me. I fucked up. I'm sorry. You know, there's no excuse. Because here's the thing. In journalism, there's 3 things that you don't do. You don't make up stories. Okay, you don't make up stories. You don't out your sources, and you don't steal someone else's work. Like you just don't do that. And Philip Mewson did the third one, and that's that's unethical, and also like you can't call yourself a journalist and do that shit. You know.
Right.
So fuck them. I mean, I know some people are going to get angry, but fuck them. I don't care. So with that being said, yeah, that was a little bit of news that I thought people would want to hear about. Anyone have anything they want to pimp out before we wrap things up? Any articles? Anyone want to say, hey, this article's fucking awesome, bro?
That's about it.
Okay. All right. This is me, Mr. Red Fox. I have 2 videos coming out. One is going to be a review of Up in Smoke by Cheech and Chong because I watched it for 420. And it's going to be a double review. I'm doing Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke and Friday because they're both kind of stoner movies. So I'm going to do a review of those 2 films. And also I have a video coming out about the game that broke my embargo on the Epic Game Store. And it's not Borderlands 3. It's not The Outer World. It's another game. And it's just it was the straw that broke the camel's back on why I'm finally going to download that shitty ass launcher and get that game when it comes out. So look forward to that. Jewel, anything you want to pimp out?
I'm all right.
All right, that's the end of the podcast. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe. You can reach me. As soon as I stop burping, you can reach me. You can reach me at Twitter at Matthew Wesley at 90 at Mr. Red Fox 91 on Twitter. You can also reach me at mrredfoxbsbuster at gmail.com. That's a very nice place. You can leave comments, questions, concerns, all that cool stuff. You could also use that as a spot to, if you would like to be in a podcast or anything like that, you can reach me there. So, yeah, totally worth it. And that being said, that's the end of the podcast. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe, and good night.
And hype response.